Hello, and welcome to another Top 5 exclusive right here at MacGuffinPodcast.com. I'm Alan.
And I'm Ed.
And today on the Top 5, we'll be talking about the top 5 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. With all the Batman talk that's been happening, we decided on talking about what I feel is the definitive version of Batman outside of the comic books.
We both have such love for this cartoon that we thought it was time to bring it up again.
So, did you want to start off on this one? Or?
Sure. My number 5, I'm going to go to a first season episode, The Clock King.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you'll go, oh, The Clock King. But that's just it, is that dude isn't even one of the major baddies of the Batman universe. But that episode, for instance, does a really good job of showing how even the minor villains can be threatening. Mm-hmm. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Clock King was a former accountant who was obsessed with his schedule. And one day his schedule gets off and he throws his entire life out of whack. And he blames his former boss for having destroyed him. Mm-hmm. So he's determined to, start a reign of terror. Mm-hmm. And it's all schedule based. And he's so methodically planned everything that he can get away from Batman by a train schedule. He does, he sets a trap on a clock at the end. Mm-hmm. And it's great in just showing, like, careful planning in the Batman world makes it really fun and threatening without power or muscle.
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. You do make a good point at how a character who's kind of minor in the overall scheme of Batman can make such an impression. I also like the design, how his glasses looked like clocks, and he had a sword that looked like the arm of a clock and everything. It was a good episode. I like that
Totally fun.
So moving on to my number 5 episode. My number 5 is actually a two-parter, and it was titled Robin's Reckoning.
Terrific choice.
Robin hasn't been portrayed that great in the many different variations of Batman, especially in the movies. Here in the animated show, he is really dealt with very, very well. We get to see Dick Grayson's background told through flashback.
Voiced by Lauren Lester, I believe.
Unfortunately, I didn't write it down, but
I think that's right.
And his development to becoming who he is, and then all of a sudden he realizes who. Or how do I say it? He finds the guy who was responsible for his parents' death, and then he kind of goes out of whack and wants to take revenge, and Batman understands it because, he was pretty much in the exact same position too, and the entire 2 episodes tells a story of Batman trying to help Robin deal with this whole situation and get through it emotionally. So it's a fantastic episode for that character.
And it reinforces that theme that's always Batman about using force but not lethal force, and what lines he draws when it comes to justice. Yeah. Well, my number 4 is another multi-parter. It was originally called World's Finest. If you look for it on video, you'll often see it's advertised as the Batman Superman movie. This was the first crossover between different animated franchises in this Bruce Timm Paul Dini world, and it is one of the best. It's really fun. When Bruce Wayne figures out who that Superman's Clark Kent just through detective work, just because he's smart.
Yep.
Yeah, that's Batman, damn it.
Yes.
And Superman immediately knows who Bruce is
because he looks right through his cowl. Yeah.
And that's great. And you get Joker playing with Lex Luthor and Harley Quinn and Lex's what was her name? The henchwoman that Lex had. Anyway, Melody or something. I'm screwing that up.
Yeah.
But it's a great fun playground where all the characters get to mix, and it is super fun to watch.
It's a great showdown between Superman's brute force and Batman's superior intellect, and the way they clash heads is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Okay, moving on to my number 4. My number 4 episode was titled Almost Got Him.
Almost put this one on my
Batman
list.
had the greatest rogues gallery ever. You could put that up with any superhero out there. And this episode, it's all about the best of his villains pretty much coming together and talking about how they almost killed Batman. We have Penguin, Poison Ivy, Joker, Killer Croc, and Two-Face. All they do is just sit around a table, playing cards and just waxing stories, just saying, man, I almost had him. No, the way I had him was better. Oh, my death trap was better than yours. And the way they clashed heads, the way they even battled each other, the writing in that episode was fantastic. It's an episode that's just a lot of fun. I mean, nothing really big happens, but we really get a good look at these characters and just what makes them who they are.
Yeah, it's that's a totally fun, terrific episode too.
Yeah.
Well, my number 3 is probably my only Joker-centric episode on this list, and it's Mad Love. It was actually turned into an Eisner-winning comic as well, but it's kind of the origin story of Harley Quinn, who was probably the biggest name to come out of this whole series. Who was created for this series.
She made such an impression that the comics adopted her from the TV show.
Yeah, Kevin Smith named his daughter after her.
Yep.
And Harley's a great character, and it's her origin story. It's how she was a doctor treating the Joker, and her empathy for him turned her. It's basically how the Joker can get inside someone's head.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into this, what eventually becomes a horribly abusive relationship, which is great fun to watch. It's both hilarious and sad all at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how you mentioned that it's about, an abusive relationship, and yet it's so entertaining.
It is so funny. And
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they pulled it off, but they pulled it off somehow with that episode.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to my number 3. My number 3 is another two-parter, and it deals with Two-Face, Mr. Harvey Dent, and his transformation from being the DA to being this criminal.
Richard Mole.
Yeah.
From Night Court. Anyway.
You have Harvey Dent, who was actually a character in the show, so we know who he was before we reached these episodes. And we learned that he has this split personality. There's the good Harvey Dent and the bad Harvey Dent. And then his situation is, manipulated by the mobster Rupert Thorne, and then he pretty much falls prey to it, and then Batman tries to come in and tries to save him, but isn't able to prevent that terrible accident from happening. And throughout the second episode, Batman has to deal with not being able to be there to save him. I think there's that there's that well-known dream sequence where Batman's like, oh, I couldn't save Harvey Dent, I couldn't save my parents as well. It's just a great episode.
Two-parter.
A little dark, a little sad, but definitely worth it.
Good use of the gangsters in the world as well, and their influence with these characters.
Yeah.
Good choice. My number 2 is an episode called Legends of the Dark Knight, which is a really fun episode where they basically kind of pay tribute to different eras of Batman's past and future. There's some kids talking about like, oh, I saw the Batman once, and then they do this flashback to like this Dick Sprang 1940s very pop art kind of old style Biff Bam. Joker is in the Batcave with some henchmen attacking Batman with a giant coin, and then they also jump forward to a Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns future as well, with the post-apocalyptic wasteland, and Robin is a girl, and the Batmobile's a tank, and those are both kind of shown as the mythical side of Batman, and the reality is also in the real world. Batman's fighting, I believe it's the Firefly, in a theater, and you kind of get to see. Here's what he actually kind of looks like as well. But it's a great way to pay tribute to like all of the artists who have worked on this guy over the years.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's great the way they, like you said, paid tribute to the many variations of the character, and pretty much shows how much the show was influenced by them.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to my number 2. My number 2 episode is, in my opinion, the best written of the entire series. It won an Emmy for outstanding writing, and it is the episode titled Heart of Ice. This is where we get to learn of Mr. Victor Freeze, or Mr. Freeze as he is well known,
Michael and Sarah,
and how he became to be. Just a very, very sad, tragic story about this scientist who does this experiment to save his wife, but then his boss all of a sudden comes in and ruins everything. There's a terrible accident that turns Victor Freeze into Mr. Freeze. He can't live outside of freezing temperature, and he pretty much is obsessed with getting revenge. the dialogue in this episode is absolutely outstanding. Every time Mr. Freeze has a monologue about saving his wife and how his wife has to be trapped in that water tank forever, it's just so heartbreaking. And the animation's amazing. Just everything about it. I don't even know where to go because it's such a fantastic episode. I just loved it. So.
And when you see how right they get Mr. Freeze, you see how wrong Batman and Robin got Mr. Freeze.
Way wrong. And the end of that episode, I don't want to give away too much, but Victor Freeze's last speech in that episode is amazing. So.
Another awesome one. Well, my number one was very easy to pick. It's called Beware the Gray Ghost. And this was, I first of all, I think this is one of the best animated of all the whole series. There's some beautiful animation in this. But this is a story of, they flash back to when young Bruce used to watch, it's supposed to be kind of the shadow kind of figure on TV. And it was the Gray Ghost. And he was basically a guy with a hat and a cape and a mask. And he's voiced by Adam West.
Mr. Adam West.
Which is another one of those nods to, who used to hold the reins. The guy who actually played the Gray Ghost in the current time, he's down on his luck. He's having to sell off all his possessions just to pay the rent. Mm-hmm. And there's a terrorist who's using themes from the old Gray Ghost shows to bomb Gotham City.
Like little toy cars, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Batman has to basically encourages the actor to suit up and go with them to help find this mad bomber. And it's poignant, and it's beautifully drawn and animated, and it's even got a fun little twist at the end. Mm-hmm. It's the first one that comes to mind when I think of this show.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of that episode is where Batman takes him into like this little room and then turns on the light, and all of a sudden there's all this like Gray Ghost gear and in this mantle, and you think, oh, Batman's a little bit of a geek. He's a little bit of a fanboy. That's pretty funny. So. Yeah, that's a great episode. Okay, moving on to my number one. My number one episode was titled I Am the Night. This episode pretty much dealt with what it means to be Batman. We see these episodes and these movies about Batman overcoming obstacles and, going further than anyone else can. Well, being Batman is really friggin' tough. And, there are moments where Batman doubts that what he's doing is even making a difference. He fights crime all the time, and yet all crime just continues to grow. This is the episode where Commissioner Gordon gets shot, and Batman realizes, no matter what I do, people that are closest to me are going to get hurt. And it's just a battle within himself. It's a very, introspective episode, but it really shows what kind of person Bruce Wayne is and why he has to be Batman. He can't do anything else,
Excellent choice. It also shows that bond that Commissioner Gordon has with him.
Yeah, the father-son bond. Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific.
Yeah. Okay, so that does it for our top 5 episodes of Batman the Animated Series. There were so many great moments on this television show that it's hard to narrow it down to 5.
If you think it's a little weird that we're dedicating this much love to this show, keep in mind this is one of the greatest cartoons ever on television.
Yeah. And that's not hyperbole, dude. We're being freaking accurate on that one.
Yes.
So, if you have any that you'd like to mention, please let it be known at MacGuffinPodcast.com, and we'll see you guys next time.